guys, welcome back to my channel. Today, Tyler is joining me to talk about one of his favorite authors and to let you know whether the Skyward series is worth reading. So I think why Tyler is such an extra special guest is that Brandon Sanderson is one of his favorite authors, and I only read it because Tyler liked it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Brandon Sanderson kind of got me back into reading after I did the high schooler reading is dumb thing, so it means a lot to me, and it got me to read outside of my comfort zone. I usually don't read young adults, and I've pretty much read everything he's written except for The Reckoners. And
for context, I've only read his 2 young adult series, so 2 very unique perspectives and 2 very different insights on Brandon Sanderson as an author. So let's get into it. Overall, what did you think of Defiant?
I actually really liked Defiant. That was kind of shaky on Skyward as a series. It's probably because of the young adult thing. But I really thought Defiant got back to what was good about the series, which was Spensa dealing with issues that were relevant to her friends and bringing the friends back into the fold. I feel like that's where the story is the strongest. And with like the struggle as like a people to, I guess, get out of imperialism, I guess, technically. So I always thought that was the strongest part. Defiant kind of saved the series for me, I guess, where I really liked the first one and then I was kind of So I thought it had a great ending. I thought it really did a great job connecting thematically the plot and her personal struggle.
I felt very similarly to you. I probably wouldn't have actually read Defiant if it wasn't part of a series, but I didn't want to just read 3 out of 4 of the books in the series and then not read the last one, and it definitely changed my perspective on it. But I do agree with what you said about how this one is very reminiscent of the first one, of Skyward. So if you like Skyward, then you're gonna really like Defiant. I have a slightly more positive opinion of you about the second and the third book in the series. I didn't hate them as much as you did. I kind of liked her being off on her own. But you also have another perspective on these books because you read the Skyward Flight miniseries, basically. How do you think that changed your opinion of what happened in Defiant?
I think the Skyward Flight series did a good job of getting back to those characters. And if you don't know, it's like basically 3 novellas combined about the other flight, like her friends. And I think it was a really good bridge where a lot of things kind of happen off screen in between the 3rd and the 4th book. So like one of the characters gets into a bigger role and like it explains how that happens. Or we haven't talked about it, but I'm sure that felt like kind of like jarring to be like, oh, like he's in control now, he's in charge. But like I spent 200 pages learning why he did become that and learning about some of the other like science fiction-y things that were going on, to where I felt it was really valuable, and it was probably actually my second favorite book in the entire series, just because I really like the other characters a lot. So that was a big boost for me, to the point where like I wish it was almost part of the 4th book, and I think it would have improved it to put some of those things inside of the actual story. And that's what I mean, like this story is really good on like the thematic stuff. And I think it did a really good job being like really clear and like concise and having those good parallels. So it's clear for a younger audience, but also not like pandering. I
think one of the other big themes that returns is just that you should rely on people and your friends, that surrounding yourself with good people is a good thing. And you've slowly seen Spensa's character development throughout the first 3 books, and I felt like you were really able to see that shine kind of in the last one, because that theme kind of came back. In the middle 2 books, she was alone and sheltered from them, and while she started to realize slowly through those 2 that you need people around you, at the end of the day, she was alone in the middle 2. That this again kind of came back in a good way to prove to her and prove to us as an audience that, oh no, you do need these people to succeed.
I agree, and that's why I really like the parallels, because like it parallels with the villains of the story. Their government is about secrecy and not working together. The main villain characters don't trust people and don't work together. And Spensa finds herself in that kind of like sinkhole and struggles until she gets herself out. So like all those themes parallel, where the people that end up trusting other people are the ones that succeed in the end and have a happier life.
I feel like all of the storylines wrapped up really well. I couldn't think of any major plot holes or things that just didn't really make sense in the series. Tyler had warned me in advance that Brandon Sanderson, in his mind, does finales really, really well.
Yep.
I don't know, I've read series before, but a lot of my series have been, the first book was a hit, and so the publisher ordered 2 to 3 more books in a series. And so it was very fun for me to read a series that has very clearly been planned to be a series. I felt like the payoffs and the paths and the themes and all of that weaved in really well together, which I think was a big positive that you guys just see very clearly in Defiant. So we've already obviously talked about that both of us felt that the fourth book, Defiant, made the Skyward series a lot better. What kind of are your other reviews and thoughts of the series now that Defiant has come to a close?
So I think that Skyward is actually really like recommendable. Where like for a while I was like, oh, I think this is like my least favorite thing he's ever written. And I was kind of like, it's not bad. It's just kind of like, it's fine. I like it. It's kind of like almost like forgettable. It's like it's the fun book I read and then I forget about. But Defiant was so good at the end and I thought was so strong as an ending that like really I feel like I can recommend it to anybody, and it's almost like a perfect bridge book like series for him now because you can get through it pretty quick and like see a lot of like the strengths that he does have as an author.
I like what you say about like now that the series is complete, it's a lot easier to recommend because I felt like my experience really suffered because I went so long in between reading each book that it was very easy for me to forget like, wait, who is that? Wait, what's going on? Like what happened in the last book? Because they do mention obviously events in the series throughout that by book 4 is really hard to still remember what happened. So I definitely agree with you that now it is very easy to recommend to someone else what's going on here.
Yeah, because I feel like the biggest issue in the series is like the biggest weight in the series was for Cytonic, the third book, and then it felt like a side story. And I think that's like a lot of my negative feelings about it. I was like, oh, I felt like I read a novella in the middle, like side adventure, but if someone read it now, it wouldn't be a problem and you get a lot of cool things out of it and could continue on right away. Mm-hmm. I think this series is really good for people whose friends recommend Brandon Sanderson a lot, but then they look at his bigger series where it's a 1,000-page book and you go, no, I'm not reading that. These are page count longer than average, but also don't have a lot of words on the page. You're an adult. They're pretty quick reads. I would recommend this to people that like Star Wars, since it is science fiction, but it's more like a sci-fi fantasy story, so it's more of an adventure thing. People that like those kind of things, I would recommend it to.
So for me, I do not read any sci-fi unless it's sci-fi horror or it's Doctor Who. So for me, that was why I wanted to read this, because I wanted to read Brandon Sanderson, because obviously I care about you and I wanted to read your favorite author, but I find no enjoyment in the 1,000-page books that are almost all character descriptions and settings and world building. Like, I find no interest in that. I've said it here before. I want to know who killed who, what happened that famous night, and most traditional adult sci-fi books are just not that. I do agree with you that this is good for anyone who thinks they want to explore what sci-fi is. Young adult, by its nature, is a lot more fast-paced, and so young adult sci-fi, and specifically the Skyward series, are good books for someone who wants to kind of dip their toes into what science fiction is like. And I learned that I don't need any more.
Good.
I don't need adult science fiction in my life to be fulfilled. Anytime I open a book and it's filled with maps and like a dictionary and a glossary, like absolutely not.
Oh, big map fan. Give me those maps.
All right, so now getting into spoilers.
So I guess the biggest spoiler I would want to talk about is the crying scene. Is what made you cry. I think that's the best thing to talk about.
So the moment that made me cry is that when she's kidnapped by Wisnik and Braid and she's communicating cytonically with the slug and they find it out and they obliterate it, they incinerate it. And it's like, oh my god, I could cry now if I think about it.
Yeah, it really caught me off guard. It was just so violent.
Yes!
Especially for a young adult. I was like, oh, it's like got really violent all of a sudden. And it was like, I think it's because like the slugs are always like the cute thing in the story. Mm-hmm. It's like he shot a dog.
Yes. The dog dies in this one.
Like Spence went, hey, dog, you want to go fetch? And like the villain walked up and just shot it right in front of her. It's like, oh, it was just like.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, it was a good and I would say a safer way to kind of illustrate the negative aspects of a fascist or authoritarian government, because it is so violent and it takes you so off guard, but at the core, that's what how those governments operate. And so it was a really good way to illustrate it in a safe way for a young adult audience, but that absolutely doesn't mean that it was any less sad.
Yeah, it was really sad. Like, gotta give him a name. It's Comslug. Oh, he's trying to help. He's so brave. He talks about, I'm a soldier. I'm brave. Yeah. And it was just, yeah, there you go. It was just really sad. In terms of other spoilers, the parallel things we're talking about is like, so Braid is kind of like the human parallel to Spensa.
And in the fourth book is revealed to actually be the one kind of operating, I think you called it like a shadow government.
Yeah. Where
Wisnik is just her puppet and that she's actually been the one this entire time organizing the revolution to keep the humans down.
Yeah, and like her big character trait is that she doesn't trust anybody, and we kind of got that earlier in the series, but like he really pushed it in this one to draw parallels between her and Spensa, and really did the like Avatar: The Last Airbender, like, oh, we're actually kind of similar, but then we're also different in these ways. And Braid kind of takes one path of no trust, and Spensa takes the other path. So it was just a really nice parallel where eventually Spensa got over that, and he does the big end of the movie thing where all her friends help her defeat the villain, and they all do their call sign. It's real cute, and it's just a really good like wrap up to that kind of like thematic moment for her.
In the past 2 years, I've read 3 series, 2 by Brandon Sanderson. But before that, I don't think I've read any series since middle school. And so this was a good way, I guess, to remind me of the things that I like about series, that you can introduce foils because they're going to be there for 4 books. You're going to see their character development. And I thought Braid was a really powerful one. I had hoped for a redemption arc. I didn't get one. Her grandma also dies in the end. I didn't find that nearly as sad, but...
Neither did I. I think it was because it was like the like valiant hero's death that he kind of played it that way, where it wasn't like sad. It was more like, oh, she's so cool or whatever. She gives her cool speech and all that. So it felt more like that like cool like hero's death moment more so than like sad like innocent creature trapped death, which is just like hard to not be a gut punch.
I liked the symbolism behind her grandma's death in that she was the last one who experienced humans as a free people, and now her last act is to set humans free. So I liked the symbolism there. I actually wasn't expecting her grandma to die. I kind of forgot she was a character in this. Once she showed up on the ship, I was like, she's gonna die. She's gonna be the one. Every series has it. Every epic series, young adult series has one. A character that they sacrificed in this final book. And I knew as soon as she re-entered the story that it was going to be the grandma.
Oh yeah, immediately. Yeah, that was not a shock either. I think that was the other thing. It wasn't a shock. It was like, okay, we have this character. Now she's on a battleship, and it was kind of like telegraphed, but not in like a bad way. And like it was just easier to deal with, and it was cool and whatever. Who was your favorite character in the series?
Well, yeah. my stupid answer is that my favorite character is Doomslug. I thought that it was just so adorable. And in the first book, like again, as he talks about like the Easter eggs, like you have no idea that Doomslug is going to come back and that there's going to be millions of them, and that like all the connections that this species has, like again, perfectly illustrates your point about Easter eggs. A small part of the first one, a fun sidekick that ends up having such a giant impact on the actual story.
And do you remember in the first one, like, Doomslug keeps showing up in places, and Spencer's like, I just don't know how you sneak up on me. And, like,
I don't remember
now we
that.
know, like, oh, they can jump around, and, like, that's why. Mm-hmm. So, like, it is those, like, fun things where, oh, that's why it's, like, Doomslug is always just, like, showing up places in the cave where she doesn't expect.
I don't think it would be fair of me to say that anyone is my favorite character because, and we talked about this criticism a little bit, Spence is really the only character we get to know very well, and so it was hard for me to find a favorite character. Like, if you were to read or watch Harry Potter, like, it's easy to identify a favorite character because there's lots of them to choose from, where I didn't feel like we got a ton of development out of the other ones, nor spent a lot of time with them. I really liked Cobb at the beginning, and I thought that, like, that was going to kind of come around and he was going to develop a little more, but he doesn't really.
Yeah, he was my favorite character, actually, but my favorite character now is actually Hesho, the fox gerbil guy. I just think he's so cool, and, like, I really like his story, and I think Skyward Flight influenced that a little bit, since one of the books really focuses on their world, Evershore. It really made it clear, like, what he gave up. And I think it was a really interesting parallel also with Braid, where, like, he was an authoritarian, like, king monarch that, like, gave it up. Brandon Sanderson didn't just treat it as, like, oh, wow, he's a great guy and he doesn't care anymore, like, but that he does struggle with it. And it's like, man, it was really awesome where I had, like, servants can be like, just bring me some food and do this or whatever. But then he kind of, like, grows to learn that, like, it's also isolating, just like how Braid is isolated, and now he also gains friends and learns that. So I really like a little gerbil ninja guy. Cool. He was cool.
So those are our thoughts on Defiant and the Skyward series. What's your final thoughts, final review? What out of 5 stars did you end up giving Defiant?
I gave Defiant a 4.5 star, and that extra half star, I'm giving it credit for really bringing me around in the series, and like now I think more fondly on it as a whole.
I gave Defiant a 5-star review. It's one of my only 5-star reviews this year, and if you've been watching, you know I'm trying to be strict about them because I gave out way too many last year. But for me, I felt like it was 5 out of 5 because any book that can make me cry, I feel like should automatically gain a star. And again, it wrapped up so much of the series and did it so well that it deserved the 5-star, I felt. My final thoughts, Skyward's an incredible series. If you're new to the sci-fi genre, if you want to give it a try, it's very easy to understand. It's very easy to engage with. So let us know in the comments below what your final thoughts on the Skyward series and Defiant were, and let us know what other sci-fi series newbies should read. I'll see you next time.